we are just going to dive right into this. Another solo cast because a couple episodes ago, I did the Peaks and Valleys episode, and my inbox was filled up from people reaching out. The interesting thing about this is people weren't reaching out only to check in. Hey, how you doing? How you feeling? How you working through the things that you're facing? But a lot of people were compelled to reach out to say, hey man, I'm in a bad way right now. I'm struggling right now. Everything you said is something that I'm feeling too. I had one guy write me, and I apologize, whoever you are, sir, because I read the message and I was going to reply at a later date, and I cannot find it. And I have a bunch of I have Facebook Messenger and my email on the website or on the podcast. I have Instagram, text message. Like, I'm not sure where it went. But one thing that he said to me was, man, as soon as you started reading off your list, I knew the next 3 topics on your list before you even read them off, because my list is the exact same thing. And so many people reached out about either working through a really dark place or currently being in a really dark place. And there was lots of gratitude and thanks, because we live in a society where a lot of men are reluctant to open up about facing hardship, facing adversity, struggling emotionally. And I'm out of the storm now. I can comfortably sit here and say it's like on an energetic level, it's over. That was it. It was a gnarly month, and we're out of the storm. My energy has shifted, and my energy has shifted for several reasons, and that's why I wanted to do another solo cast, because with knowing how many of you guys are in that place, I wanted to talk to you about the path that I took that took me out of it. Now, I think there was a lot of power derived from the Peaks and Valleys episode, because one thing that I preached and one thing that I adhered to over the last, it's been maybe 6 weeks now, was that even in the midst of the storm, I still maintain the discipline to do the things that I know I need to do. Now, I talked about wanting to quit those things. I talked about not feeling like recording an episode. I talked about not wanting to go to the gym. I talked about not wanting to do the Forge Ferocity meetings. And those all came from a place of that voice inside of your head that is telling you, don't do this, don't do that, you're not good enough. And all the things that we talked about on that episode, which I'm not going to rehash out on this episode. That episode was about being in the valleys. And this episode is going to be about the path back to the summit. So yes, if some of the stuff that you hear today doesn't make sense, go back and listen to that. It was 2 episodes ago, and it really just dove deep into my life as I went through an emotional struggle with separating from members of my family. And a lot of people are in that place. And so even though it was a rough period of time, month or two, I also had the understanding, and I've said this before, once you've walked through a storm or 2 or 10, man, you know when you're in the storm that on the other side of it is peace and love and happiness and positive vibrations again. And even though while you're in the eye of the storm, it doesn't feel like that's obtainable, once you've been through that cycle a few times, man, you know that the other side, you will find love and happiness again. But something shifted this time. Something is different about getting out of this storm as opposed to getting out of previous storms. And we're going to go into that. As I sit here right now, I'm pretty confident that moving forward, I won't be able to be brought as low as I was. Now that's kind of that's easy to sit here and say because my energy is in a positive place and I'm feeling good. If something catastrophic were to occur to my life, could I fall back into that? I'm sure I could. But outside of something absolutely catastrophic, I feel like this cycle helped me get a better understanding and better control over myself on an energetic level than I think maybe I ever have before. And so what I want to do is I want to talk you guys through literally the last week of my life. Spiritually, it's been pretty wild. A lot of things have happened exactly how they're supposed to happen. And it is not lost on me whatsoever what the universe has in store for me, what is next, and what I need to do to reach the next level of success in my life. So we'll start with Thursday. Thursday morning, I drove to a facility, and it's a facility, and also there is a house on the property. And because it was just me that was up there, we actually went into the house, and we didn't go into where the healing retreat typically takes people. And because of this, it was a lot more personal. Here's the deal, guys. By the time I arrived at this facility, my energy was already on the mend. I was already kind of walking out of the fog, and I had some ups and downs, and it wasn't a pleasant few weeks preceding this, but I know that I was already on the mend, and it worked out perfectly because the ceremony that I attended is called a heart ceremony. Now, for those of you that don't know what a heart ceremony is is where you go under the medicine, and they use sassafras root, which when you extract that a certain way, it creates MDMA. Now, people hear that and they think, oh my God, party drug. Like, oh, that's what guys take when they want to go to the rave and have sex. And it's like, guys, just like any substance, you can be a fool with it, or you can be very intentional with it. And when you use the sassafras root as part of what they call a heart ceremony, what it literally does is it opens up your heart chakra. It opens you up to be able to communicate, to be able to share with people, to be able to receive, and be able to put you in a state where you can't really be a full of shit person. Now, I had no intentions on trying to lie or diminish my involvement in how certain things played out or any of that. I was going into this knowing, hey, we're going to get in the weeds on my life, and I'm going to talk about what transpired, what I did, how the things made me feel. Like, I knew going in, I wasn't going to try and fucking beat around the bush or pretend that this was something that it wasn't. The whole reason I went was to dive the fuck in. And really what it is, guys, it's talk therapy. It's basically a counseling session, but it's a counseling session under the medicine with somebody that has the ability to read and feel energy and see energy too. Literally have a visual, the ability to visually assess energy. You can sit there as you listen to this podcast in your car and think that I'm nuts or think that she is nuts, but I went to it, guys. I went to it, I felt it, and I know what I experienced was real. I know that. Now, let me say this too, guys, because this is my first time going to a heart ceremony. And you guys can Google it and see like more detail on how they unpack what it is and how it affects you and whatnot. I am by no means sitting here pretending to be an expert, telling you to do one, telling you how it's going to affect your life, how it's going to help you. And this isn't a fucking disclaimer because I don't give a fuck about a disclaimer. Sue me. You guys know I don't give a shit about that. The reason I'm saying that to you is because some people go to a heart ceremony and they don't get much out of it. Other people go to a heart ceremony and it fucking changes every aspect of their life. And I'm somewhere in the middle. I left that ceremony saying to myself, everything that I learned if I'm being honest with myself, I kind of already knew. Now I had a few aha moments where it was like, oh, wow. Okay. And what I found was things were tied together a little in a manner that I could conceptualize a little better, that I could understand. Things going back to my childhood, things going back to my girlfriend who I was with when I was in my early 20s. Like, this lady has the ability to really read your energetic field and go into parts of your life that that no other people have been able to do with me. She was able to have an understanding of things about the first love of my life, my father, even my grandparents, and she was able to have an understanding of these things that for me, it didn't put me in a place where, man, I think this lady knows what she's talking about. For me, it put my communication with her in a place of what I call knowing. I know what she talked to me about and her reads on my energetic field and her reads on what she calls tethers, how I'm connected to other people. It's a knowing that she was able to see these things and feel emotions around how I'm connected to different people. Man, I'll tell you what, she was able to help me release tethers too, to people that I've been so angry with over the last couple months, or I should say 1 month. She was able to help me cut those tethers. And don't mistake that for cutting that person out of my life, like severing the communication with them or severing the bond that I have with this person. But she was able to sever some of the negative energetic fields that were connecting us. And I'm telling you right now, when I severed some of those negative tethers, my energetic field shifted in a single moment. And it hasn't went back yet. That was Thursday. I'm recording this Tuesday, the following week. It's Tuesday the 10th. And they haven't shifted back yet. I had so much rage and anger and a lot of different things that were haunting me based on what we talked about 2 episodes ago. Again, I'm not going to go into all those details. And there's reasons I'm not going to go into them. And we'll get into that here a little later. But your words have power. And that's another thing that kept surfacing this weekend. The things you say, the things you verbalize out to the universe have the power to affect your reality. And we'll get into that here in a little bit. But I was able to learn a lot of things that, again, not these like earth-shattering things about myself that I had no idea about, but really connecting the dots of the different people, the different experiences in my life. And when I left there the following day, man, I felt like I could have a better understanding of who I am, where I came from, and where the fuck I'm going. And where I'm going has changed dramatically in the last few days. Also, as part of this ceremony, Tyler Stanaway, who you guys know well through the podcast, he came and he did a rune reading with me. Now, I know some of you guys think rune readings are witchcraft and it's evil and it's, and it's kind of sad to me that a lot of people are unwilling to just kind of lean into something that's outside of the norm, something that may be very different than what you've experienced, tapping into an energetic field in a manner that maybe you haven't done before based on your current faith or your current religious practices. But if you look into the old Norse religion, the religion of the Vikings, this is a very common practice. And if you learn about the runes, which I've been learning about here for the last couple weeks, they're very interesting. All right. Again, I'm not saying that this should be what you follow or what you shouldn't follow, but what I'm saying is from someone that has Icelandic heritage and I know that I have Viking DNA running through my fucking veins, it was interesting to me. It felt like it made sense to me. And I'll tell you why it's interesting, because leading into ceremony, we did a rune reading, and I drew the rune Thurizas. Thurizas is the rune of chaos, destruction, conflict, and don't mistake that as having a negative connotation to it, because there are times in your life when you need to embrace chaos, when you need to move towards conflict, when you do need to be the person that takes the step into conflict. Sometimes your life needs that, and that's the energy of that rune. Now, it's also very dangerous, because it says if you hold this type of energy, but you don't have good self-control, you don't have your ego in check, man, it can turn you into someone, or that I should say that energy is something that can really be mishandled. And the reason that is fascinating to me is because my whole life I have convinced myself that I love chaos and I'm drawn to conflict. I've literally said that my whole adult life. And I've said that because, man, fucking fights, warfare, competing, jujitsu, like, man, there's something about stepping into the realm of chaos that has always spoken to me. It's attracted me. It feels like when I'm inside of chaos, I feel like, man, I almost feel like I'm home. And through this ceremony, what I kind of learned about myself is, man, chaos is not home for you. Peace is home for you. Love is home for you. Just because you become so conditioned to feel comfortable inside of chaos, that doesn't mean that's what you want, that's what you seek, and that's what you deserve. It means you've lived a life that's built an understanding of chaos. But the truth for all of us is, even if we're very conditioned to chaos and conflict, don't mistake that for being drawn to it or wanting it in your heart. I think it's safe to say all of us in our heart probably do prefer peace, probably do prefer love. And for whatever reason, it's like I was never able to either see that or admit that. And coming through this, again, when I look back on it, it's like, yeah, duh. And of course I want peace and love. But the warrior inside of me was so used to just being like, fuck you, let's go, that it was hard for me to balance those two aspects of me. And I've convinced myself over the years that, man, part of being a warrior is just being drawn to conflict. And as I sit here today as a 44-year-old man, don't get me wrong. There are things that I see when it's like, hey, it's fucking time for war, right? We see these people that are shitting on our country or shitting on our communities, and it's time for fucking war. Well, therein lies the whole problem with conflict. If you're drawn to it and you seek it and you want it, maybe you lean into it too fast. Maybe you jump into or cause conflict without balancing things properly. Conflict should only take place when you can calmly, outside of your ego, say, based on A, B, and C, it's time for fucking war, so let's go to war. And not have that decision be emotionally based. And again, guys, I'm not sitting here pretending to be the fucking expert on this. I feel like I'm starting to connect these dots and have an understanding. And you know how I roll on this show. When I learn something, I share it with you guys. Because there's some of you guys listening right now, and by some, I mean probably all, that are deciphering all this same shit that I'm deciphering in your lives in some sort of capacity. So the rune reading that I did at ceremony, the rune that was drawn, and the intention of the rune is the energy that I am going to hold moving forward in my life. we did 2 rune readings. One that solidifies the end of the old me, and then the next was what is going to be the energy moving forward with the new me. Well, the night before ceremony, I had a dream, and I do. I don't normally remember my dreams. I remember this dream vividly. The night before ceremony, I had a dream that I was killed by an elk. It broke my neck and it killed me. And as soon as I died, I woke up, sat up in bed, and was like, wow, that was a fucking vivid dream. And I told Tyler about that. I told him about that experience going into ceremony. So he already knew. And when he threw the runes of this rune represents the past you in your old life, he threw the elk rune. And he doesn't look into the bag, right? He reaches in the bag, he throws the rune, and it's the elk rune. And what the elk rune symbolizes is basically killing off the old you and starting on a new path. Guys, again, it's too fucking crazy. I had the dream the night before, killed by an elk. And then he throws the elk rune representing the old me dying off and a new me beginning. Then he throws the rune for the new me. And you guys can go look these runes up. They're pretty fascinating. The new rune was Anzus. What Anzus is, it is the power of the spoken word, the power of articulation. Basically, using intellect over muscle and being able to communicate effectively and help people understand things. And it's just too fucking bizarre that is the rune that is pulled for me moving forward. I'm sitting here right now using spoken word. But as soon as I left ceremony, I went and I got on a flight and I attended a millionaire mastermind in Laguna Beach, California. Guys, everything got tied together for me in such a capacity that it is no longer, I wonder what's next. I know what's next. And we're going to go into this stuff too. But on my way to ceremony, no, I'm going to take that back. It wasn't on my way. It was shortly before. I get a text from Chad Robichaud. And he says to me, Greg, I have a lot of guest speaking requests. Because that's something he does. He's a keynote speaker. He does a lot of traveling, speaking to audiences about different things. And he said, I'm at the capacity where I can't really take more on. And the people that are booking me said, do you have anyone else in mind that could bring value? And he said, my buddy Greg Anderson, let me connect you with them. So right there, already, he said, based on the podcast that we did together, he thought I'd be a good fit for that. Okay, so I'm moving forward with stepping more outside of a warrior's mentality and more into almost like an educator's mentality. Man, use the tongue, not the sword. That's where you're at in your life right now. And not only is that where you're at in your life right now, but that's where you can actually affect more change. Then I go down to California, and it's a millionaire mastermind. 16 people show up in this room. And the truth is, guys, I was invited by another guy that was attending, that's a friend of mine, who's a very wealthy person. He's very dialed in the world of business and real estate and all the things that generate a lot of wealth. And he said, Greg, I think you should come here. I think it'd be good for you. He goes, I vouched for you. And they said, if you want to come, you're welcome. And when I showed up, man, don't get me wrong. I didn't say this being like derogatory or saying anything self-deprecating, but I said to them, I said, it's not lost on me that I'm likely the poorest guy in the room, but I also know I'm here for a reason. I also know I bring something to the table that's very powerful. And I also know I'm not here by accident. I know there's a reason why I am here the day after I did my ceremony, connecting to you guys and hearing what you have to say. And something very powerful is about to transpire. I feel it in my heart. And again, it's a knowing. And one of them pulled me aside a little later and he goes, hey, bro, just so you know, like around here, we never, ever say anything that is self-deprecating or that puts negative vibrations out into the universe. He goes, when you told us that you're the poorest guy in the room, I realized, man, that you are telling yourself a lie. He goes, because if we were to compare bank accounts, do I have more dollars in my bank account than you have? Sure. But let's talk about what makes you rich and what makes you poor. He's like, you have a thriving jiu-jitsu academy. You have a great family. You're surrounded by good friends. You have powerful jiu-jitsu. You hold the ability to stand up in front of a room of people and motivate them. He literally told me, he goes, that whatever the Jocko thing is, you have that too. It's very similar, the energy that you are able to project on people. He goes, so you're the furthest fucking thing from poor. You're actually rich. And you always need to tell yourself you are a rich man. And I just looked at him and I said, hey, your message is received, brother, like loud and clear. Again, I'm not someone that's self-deprecating because self-deprecation is the same thing. You make a joke about yourself being ugly or you make a joke about yourself being stupid. What you're doing is it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. And, we actually check each other on that in the academy. Don't say self-deprecating things about yourself. Say empowering things about yourself. But even when I was saying it in a non-self-deprecating manner, I was just simply saying like, hey, if we were to compare bank accounts, that aspect of my life, I'm the bottom of the totem pole. They didn't even want to hear that. I said, that is not your path to wealth. So one thing this guy said as well, he said this to the group, but I know that he was saying it to me. It's kingship versus warriorship. And he said, wielding the sword has made you a warrior, but only learning to wield your tongue will you ever become a king. And it's like, man, that phrase has been on my fucking brain since Saturday. And guys, the guy's name's Peter Kell. You can look him up. He has a book called Something Amazing is About to Happen. And man, his whole thing is manifesting your life through visualization, meditation, speaking it into existence. And so let's just dive into that right now because we're already a half hour into the show. And this is one of the most important things that I want you guys to hear. Every single person in the room was worth all kinds of money. Now, does money money's not important. Money's the root of all evil. Money can't buy you happiness. Yeah, right? Those are all things that we tell ourselves so we don't go out there and chase financial freedom to set ourselves and our families fucking free. There are some guys that were in that room that likely have more money in their bank account than me and all of you guys listening together combined. And I'm here to tell you 100% of these men, 100% of these men said money is energy. Just like love is an energy, just like connection is an energy, just anything, right? Any aspect of our life. And they said to step into prosperity, you need to think about stepping into like the river of wealth, the river of prosperity. And when you can figure out how to energetically step into the river of prosperity, wealth will flow into you. But here's the key to taking wealth to the next level. It also has to flow out of you. And if you ever try and hold on to that wealth from a place of greed or selfishness, or you plan to do dark deeds, if you attach any type of dark energy to that river of prosperity, it will cease to flow and it will dry up. But if you lean in to love and empowerment and enriching people's lives, then the river continues to flow and it will fill you, and then it will continue to flow and it will fill others. Guys, 100% of these men talked about that. They talked about manifesting their wealth through visualization, through meditation, through always making sure that they are giving. Because the more you give, the more you receive. That was a mantra that I heard several times throughout the weekend. And it was interesting to me, guys, and this is why I'm sharing it on the show, is because so many people are told, oh, the rich this, the rich that. I'm telling you, these guys were fucking rich. And they had nothing but love and joy for each other. I walked into the room, and the wealthiest person in the room gave me this big hug. And he looked me in the eye and he goes, man, I can feel you are my jiu-jitsu brother. Like instantly. And I'll tell you what, he just asked me today, he said, I would love to come on your show and talk about things and enrich the lives of your community and your listeners with his knowledge of obtaining wealth. And when I talked about, when I got up in front of the room and introduced myself, and when I said, I know there's a reason that I'm here, and I just have to figure out what that is, man, him and I made eye contact, and it was very clear we're supposed to do something together. He came up to me afterwards, and he said that. Something is going to transpire between us. And you want to know how fucking crazy the world is? Today, another friend of mine, through a completely unrelated avenue, connected me with him. So try and fucking wrap your brain around that. Like, hey, the universe wants you to know this person for some reason. And it's very clear to me that the things we talked about and the things that he said to me and the guidance that he gave me needs to be listened to and needs to be adhered to. And it absolutely 100% will take me to the next level. Another thing that all the guys there said, they're like, bro, you already have a podcast that helps a lot of people that's doing exceptionally well. This podcast is a top 0.5% show on planet Earth. Said you built a big social media. You have a huge jiu-jitsu gym where you're impacting lots of people. Man, you have all the tools in place to be able to not only monetize your brand better, but as you monetize it more, it will get bigger and it will affect change in more people. And we can help you on that path, on how to get more exposure, on how to connect to the right people, on how to ask what you're worth when you're brokering deals. And that's something that I've always struggled with. You know, it's like, man, there's a lot of guest speakers like, hey, if you want me to come and give a talk, it's $100,000. Does that sound reasonable to you as you sit here right now? Well, let me ask you this. If you're talking to 10,000 people and every single person's life is able to be enriched, maybe by a large amount, maybe by a small amount, but you're talking to, I don't know what number I just said, but let's say 10,000 people. That's a big fucking audience, right? And everybody walks out of there a little bit better. You think that was worth $100,000? When collectively all those people can pay this much money to give you what feels like a rather large sum of money. But when we're looking, this is what they talk about money. They say money is an energy and it's an energetic transfer. Just like any other energetic transfer, any other emotional transfer, they look at wealth the same way. So if there's thousands of people in a room that derived value from what you said, and each of them wants to give you $10, and now you're walking out of there with $20,000, that feels like, man, dude, does that seem a little excessive? The answer is no. It's not excessive. Because if you don't believe in your value, then the energetic transfer is out of balance. And we talked about all of these things this weekend. And so I know what's next for me. What's next for me is leaning in to public speaking, to building Forged Ferocity into something that can really affect change in people's lives. And don't get me wrong, guys, it already has. Forged Ferocity is 9 months old. We don't have a lot of members, but the people that jumped on board felt a calling to be part of that. And it has been extremely beneficial for a lot of those people. But how can I take that and change it to being able to help thousands of people? And there's a path to that. I just simply didn't understand how to get from point A to point B. And now that I'm working with people that have done it, they are more than happy to help me build my platform and my programs to be able to be as big as possible. And I'm fucking excited about that. I'm excited about it. I feel it. I feel the energetic shift from where I was a week ago to where I am now. And so let's talk about some of the things that I learned this weekend at this. I'm calling it a millionaire mastermind. The event title was Ascend. That's the event title. And it's where a lot of successful people get together and discuss how to be better. And man, like on day one, we talked about relationships. We talked about businesses. We talked about just our perspectives on the current world that we're inhabiting. We went and we did jiu-jitsu together. We grappled for an hour. We went out and had dinner together. Like we just did a bunch of different things. We ice plunged together. Like some of the stuff was hard, like getting in the ice and doing jiu-jitsu. Well, for me, that's my world, right? So that's where I shined. Other things, like other people shined. And one of the things that one of the guys said, who has found a tremendous amount of success in his life, he said there's two energies that you need to really embody if you want your life to progress in a positive manner. One is gratitude. And most of you guys listening, if I were to ask you that question, what energy do you need to embody to grow and succeed as a person? I think most people would land on gratitude. Gratitude, it's pretty obvious that it's filled with empowering energy. Because what gratitude is it's appreciation. And when you hold gratitude in your heart for things, what it does in your brain is it tells you, like if I'm going to hold gratitude for something that I'm meditating on, how your brain perceives that is that it's already happened. Because you can't hold appreciation for something that hasn't happened yet. Now, we can go back and listen to other episodes of podcasts where I've said, hey, is gratitude even real? Does a grizzly bear feel gratitude? Right? Like, I'm on the journey with you guys. And so if you're screaming that at your radio right now in your car, hey, I get you. I get you. I agree. I'm learning as we're all learning. But he said the other energy that you need to put into your endeavors is excitement. And the way that he described excitement was when you're running downstairs Christmas morning. That feeling right there. That fucking feeling of, I can't fucking wait for what's next. I can't fucking wait. That's the level of energy that you need to be feeling in the endeavors that you're currently chasing. Gratitude and excitement. And it seems like a pretty simple formula, right? We can sit here and say this formula, it's easy to understand, it makes sense. But here's the deal, guys. And again, this is a whole weekend getting unpacked in a 50-minute show or whatever it's going to be. I said, here's one of the problems, though, that a lot of people have a hard time getting past, is you can hold all the excitement in the world, all the gratitude, all the love, all the positivity, And if you have 100 thoughts and emotions in your mind, but then you have one where it's like, you know what? I fucking hate that person. I want to kill him. They said you can take any positive number, and when you multiply it with any amount of negativity, now it's all negative. 100% of it is now negative. So if you're math people, to understand that, I'm not a math person, but when he unpacked it in that manner, it made sense to me. So he said the true energy that you need to hold to find success is sure, excitement, gratitude, love, like all those things, right? But what's more important than feeling the positives is not allowing the negatives in. Because one negative thought outdoes 100 positive thoughts. Keep the negative thoughts out of your head. Keep the words out of your mouth. And here's the thing, guys, if you're thinking them, but you have the discipline to just hold it inside and say, you know what, that guy cut me off. I want to flip him off and say, fuck you. But because I'm reading Emotional Intelligence 2.0, I decided not to do that. And I have better control of myself. Guys, don't get me wrong. That is definitely a better option, right? And I am currently walking that path just like you guys are. However, if you can even take it a step further and tell yourself, hey, he's probably in a hurry because he's having a tough morning too. So I wish him the best. I hope he doesn't cause a collision and hurt himself or somebody else. If you can send him off with that emotion, you didn't let negativity enter your heart. And that is what that is the type of life that these guys are chasing. Again, much, much easier said than done, right? But again, when you unpack that, it makes perfect sense. All of these men were talking about being on a positive energetic field. They were talking about vibrations being positive or negative. They were even talking about the shifting polarity and how the earth is moving from 5 megahertz to, I think we're currently at 47 megahertz. Like all the shit that everybody says is fucking woo-woo weird shit. But here on The Endless Endeavor, we dive into it and I talk about all this stuff. Some of it I believe, some of it I think is kind of crazy, but I don't put anything completely off the table because at the end of the day, I don't know. But what I can tell you is in a room full of exceptionally exceptional people, they are all in belief of all those things that I just mentioned. Here's another thing that I think is interesting. One of them talked about like living hard. Nobody cares. Work harder. Like I burn the candle at both ends. I wake up early and I get on the grind. And he says to me, Greg, like, I want to live comfortable. I want to be happy. I want to live in peace. I don't want to live in this state of being on the grind. He's like, and I've built a life where, dude, you know what? I have food in my refrigerator. Electricity's on in my house. My house is warm. And dude, I'm doing good. And I'm happy with that. And I don't want to feel like all the time everything's fucking hard and stressful. He goes, so this is what I do. I chase comfort and I chase peace. And I live inside of comfort and peace. And it's funny because one of my slogans is what? Microdose adversity, right? Well, this is what this gentleman said to me about that. He said, I chase comfort and peace. And then when I know it's time to put myself through something difficult, I simply do it with the intention of doing something difficult to make me a better person. He says, so I'll go sign up and do a 100-mile race. He goes, I've done 11 ultra marathons where I've ran over 100 miles. And so when you hear a guy tell me he is chasing comfort and peace, and then you find out he's an ultra marathon runner, those two things, they sound mutually exclusive, don't they? Well, they're not in his brain, because over here, he is chasing a life of comfort and peace and happiness. And then when it is time to challenge himself, he intentionally says, hey, to challenge myself, we're going to go do something difficult. This is what we're going to do. And he says it'll be an ice bath, or it'll be a 100-mile race, or it'll be 10,000 push-ups in a day. He did that one time. Or it's going to be, I'm going to go to jiu-jitsu practice. But he never looks at the things that he does as like embracing the grind or staying hard. He simply says, it helps me stay a balanced person, so I will go and do things that challenge me with intention behind it, rather. And so then the next day he's talking to the group. He goes, guys, because one of the guys was like, I just work so much. I'm always working. And he goes, do you know what the phrase for hard work is in the English language? To toil. He goes, and if you look up the word toil and you actually break it down to its root meanings, and it's like back in it's the Latin words and all that, where you can really dissect the origin of the word. Do you know what it is? It's an olive presser. That's right, an olive presser, meaning you're with a machine and you're grinding olives and you're pressing them so you can get olive oil. And he goes, I don't know about you guys, but I'm not pressing olives for another man. He goes, when I decide it's time to earn, he says, instead of saying I'm getting up and going to work, he says, I'm going to get up and I'm going to go create. I'm going to go share. I'm going to go enrich. I'm going to go love. And he says, you have to attach that kind of energy into getting up and doing what you do. If you can't attach that kind of energy to getting up and doing what you need to do, it might be time to rethink what you're doing. And that was his whole thing. I want to make generational wealth being happy, chasing love, chasing travel, chasing excitement. And then I want to go do difficult things as part of a way to challenge myself as a person. But even those things, there's no negativity around them. This weekend changed my life. You know, I've been around the most savage athletes in the world. And I was for a long time when I lived in California. I've been around the most savage special operations guys in the world, the most savage war fighters, the guys at the top of the food chain when it comes to tactics and SOPs. I've been around a lot of people in law enforcement that are at the very pinnacle of their job. And I felt like I had a pretty good understanding of what being around winners feels like. And while all that still holds true, all those people that I just mentioned, they are absolutely winners in their field. This is the first time I've been around winners in the realm of finances. Guys whose business is valued at $100 million. Guys that have absolutely reached the pinnacle. Well, here's the funny thing. And it's just like us with jiu-jitsu, right? I'm a good black belt. A lot of people would look at me and say, that dude is at the pinnacle of jiu-jitsu. And then you watch me roll with Buchecha and you realize, oh, I'm nowhere even close. The guys whose businesses are worth $100 million, they feel the same way because there's other men out there whose businesses are worth $100 billion. And so it's all relative, right? But my point is, hanging around top earners made me realize their approach to being the best in their field is damn near identical to all the things that we talk about on the show in regards to being the best athlete, being the best soldier, being the best police officer, being the best husband. And for whatever reason, everybody's thought that the people that chase money, it has to be rooted in some type of negativity. And from what I saw, and I know it's fact, it's a knowing. Again, I felt it. I feel these people's energy. From what I saw, all that is bullshit. And all that is just a mechanism to make you say, I'm comfortable being poor. So why are we all conditioned to be comfortable being poor? Well, I can tell you why. Because our adversaries, they've figured out a way to wealth. And guys, this isn't coming from me. This is coming from the people that I talked to this weekend. Money is a tool. Money is a power. And it can be used for good or it can be used for evil. And so if our adversaries have figured out a way to wealth, there should be no part of you that has any reservations or negative self-talk if you're going to go chase wealth. I know that I don't have it. I know that we've talked about this exact topic before on the show, and I've already arrived at a point where I don't believe chasing wealth is bad, you know? And a lot of that came from like Andy Frisella's perspective and talking to him about stuff. But when you're in a room full of people and all of them are good human beings with love and positive energy in their heart, and they're substantially successful in the world of finances, man, it just makes you open your eyes even a little wider and have a better understanding of what's going on. So guys, I'm going to leave you with that. The words you use have power. Excitement and gratitude puts you on the path to prosperity. The more you give, the more you receive, and stepping into the river of abundance will really be something that helps you level up financially. And the last point that I want to reiterate, because I know a lot of you guys out there, just like I've been doing for the last 30 years, wielding the sword has made you a warrior. But only when you learn to wield your tongue will you become a king.